In a distant galaxy, far from Earth, there was a powerful alien king named Durex. He ruled the Zarn Empire with strength and pride. His people feared him, and even his wives followed his every command. But one of his wives was different. Her name was Mira. She was bold, intelligent, and not afraid to speak her mind. She often questioned Durex and his cruel methods. Many said she had the heart of a warrior, not a queen. Durex became angry with Mira's rebellious nature. He did not want to kill her because that would make her a symbol of resistance. Instead, he wanted to break her pride in front of the galaxy. So he made a strange decision. He would sell her in a public auction to the highest bidder. It would be a warning to anyone who dared to challenge him. The auction was set to take place on a desert planet named Ranos. The planet had no beauty, only sand, sharp rocks, and burning heat. But it had one thing others desired: freedom of trade. Ranos did not follow any empire's rules. Anything could be sold there without question. It was the perfect place for Durex's plan. When the auction day came, creatures from many planets arrived. Some were tall with glowing eyes. Some had metal arms and sharp teeth. Others wore robes covered in gold and jewels. Many were powerful traders, warlords, or rich collectors. They came to bid on Mira not just because she was beautiful, but because owning the king's rebellious wife would bring them fame and power. Among the crowd stood a human named Tom. He wore a dusty coat and carried a small bag of tools. Tom was a scavenger. He flew around forgotten places in his old ship, the Star Needle, searching for parts and lost tech. He had come to Ranos by mistake. He thought it was a trade market where he could sell some engine coils. When he found out it was an auction, he almost left. But when he heard who was being sold, something made him stay. Tom moved closer to the large stage made of dark metal. Alien guards stood on each corner holding strange weapons. A booming voice filled the air as the auctioneer began to speak. "Today, we offer a prize unlike any other. A royal wife of the great King Durex. She is strong, fearless, and defiant. Let the bidding begin." The crowd roared as Mira stepped onto the stage. She wore simple clothes, but walked with grace. Her eyes were sharp, her face calm. She did not look afraid. She did not lower her head. She looked directly at the crowd as if she was the one in control. The bidding started fast. A warlord with a face like stone offered 10 star gold bars. A trader with 6 arms raised the bid to 20. A beast with fur and steel armor shouted 30. The numbers kept rising. Mira stood silently, watching them argue. Tom stood at the edge, not bidding. He had nothing compared to these aliens. Only a few credit chips and his ship, which was nearly falling apart. But he could not take his eyes off Mira. He felt something strange, something deep. He had seen people sold before in dark corners of the galaxy, but never like this. Never someone so proud. The bid reached 50 gold bars. The crowd quieted as it seemed the winner was chosen. The auctioneer raised his hand. "Sold to Lord Grack of the Iron Claw." But before the final word left his mouth, Mira raised her voice. "I choose the human." Everyone turned toward Tom. He froze. He could feel hundreds of eyes on him. Some laughed, some shouted in anger. The auctioneer looked confused. "The human?" he asked. Mira pointed again. "Yes. Under the old Zarn law, a royal wife may choose once during a sale. I choose him." King Durex, watching from a private screen far away, began to laugh. He saw no threat in the poor human. To him, this was better than death for Mira. Being owned by a weak, poor scavenger was the perfect insult. The auctioneer nodded slowly. "Very well. If the human agrees, the law allows it." Tom stepped forward, heart pounding. He didn't know the old law, but he understood the meaning. He opened his bag and placed everything he had on the stage. His last chips, some rare parts, even the ownership chip for his ship. "It's all I have," he said. The auctioneer looked at Mira. She nodded once. "Accepted," the auctioneer declared. "She belongs to him now," the crowd shouted. Some were angry, some laughed, some threw sand, but it was done. Tom stepped toward Mira. She looked at him closely, her face unreadable. "Let's go," she said. They left the stage together. The guards did not stop them. They walked through the angry crowd without a word. Tom could feel the heat and tension, but Mira walked without fear. When they reached the landing field, Tom opened the hatch of his old ship. Mira stepped inside. The door closed behind them as the engines began to warm. Tom sat at the pilot's seat, hands shaking a little. Mira sat across from him, still watching. "You have no idea what you've done," she said quietly. Tom gave a small smile. "Not yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be trouble." Mira looked out the window at the world they were leaving. That's one word for it. The ship lifted off, rising into the sky above Ranos, leaving behind the noise of the auction. Ahead of them was the unknown. Behind them, the most dangerous king in the galaxy had just been mocked in front of the stars, and both of them knew he would not forget. The Star Needle flew quietly through open space. Its old engines hummed low. Inside, Tom sat at the controls, still not sure how all this had happened. Just a few hours ago, he had planned to sell scrap parts. Now, beside him, sat a royal alien woman who had just shocked the galaxy. Mira sat near the ship's window, watching the stars pass by. Her posture was calm, but her mind was busy. She was thinking about the risk she had taken. Choosing a human no one respected had been dangerous, but she had done it on purpose. Tom glanced at her and broke the silence. "Why did you choose me?" he asked. Mira turned her head slowly and answered in a clear voice. "Because you did not bid. You did not cheer. You looked at me like I was a person." Tom looked down at the control panel and scratched his head. "I didn't know what to do. I didn't even understand half of what was going on. I'm not rich or brave. I just didn't like the way they were treating you." Mira nodded once. She could see he was not lying. "In the Zarn Empire, humans are seen as weak," she said, "but they are one of the few species the Zarn cannot control with their minds. That's why the king allows only a few of you to live in his space." Tom leaned back in his seat and frowned. "Mind control. That's real?" "Yes," Mira replied, "but it doesn't work on your kind. That's one reason the king fears your people. He hides it with fake respect, but deep down he is afraid. I saw it in his eyes long ago." Tom was silent for a moment. Then he asked carefully, "Is he going to come after us?" Mira didn't hesitate. "Yes, he's already planning it." Outside the ship, space stretched wide and quiet, but both of them knew danger was close. King Durex would not forgive this insult. Not only had Mira disobeyed him again, but she had left him in front of 1,000 witnesses. That kind of shame was deadly in Zarn culture. Tom opened the navigation. "Map. I can take us to a moon called Telra. It's off the trade routes and has caves for cover. I used to hide there during pirate raids." Mira nodded in agreement. "Good, but we will need fuel and food first. We cannot risk being stranded." Tom adjusted course. The Star Needle turned slightly and aimed toward a small supply station on a frozen planet nearby. It was run by an independent group called the Krell. They traded in silence and asked no questions. Hours later, they landed on the icy surface of the planet. The cold air blew across the landing pad. Tom wore his thick coat. Mira wore a hooded cloak. They stepped out together and walked into the metal outpost. Inside, strange music played from old speakers. Lights flickered. The walls were scratched and rusted. A tall creature with 4 eyes stood behind the counter. It looked at Mira with curiosity but said nothing. Tom placed some of his remaining chips on the table. "Fuel and food packs," he said. The creature nodded and gave him a code disc. As they turned to leave, Mira noticed a shadow move near the exit. Her eyes narrowed. "Someone's watching us." she whispered. Tom looked, but saw nothing. Still, he trusted her instinct. They moved fast, walking straight back to the ship as they climbed aboard. Mira turned suddenly and threw a small device behind them. A flash of light exploded. A hidden drone crashed to the floor, sparking. Someone had been tracking them. Tom started the engines at once. The ship lifted off the ground, just as another drone fired a plasma shot at them. The blast hit the side but only scratched the armor. The Star Needle sped into the sky, escaping before more could follow. Inside, Tom gripped the controls tightly. "Guess he didn't wait long," he said. "No, that was only the first wave." Mira replied, "He will send more, each one stronger than the last." Tom gave a small nod. "Then we'll have to stay ahead." As they flew through space, Mira walked to the back room and returned with a small metal case. She opened it on the table, revealing strange crystals and glowing tools. "What's that?" Tom asked. "Zarn Tech." She replied, "I took it before I left. It's old, but powerful. We can use it to upgrade your ship." Tom's eyes widened. "You know how to do that. I was not just a wife. I studied systems, weapons, defense units. The king wanted smart queens to make his empire stronger. That was his mistake." They spent the next few hours working together. Tom connected wires while Mira adjusted energy settings. Slowly, the ship began to change. The shields were stronger. The scanner could now detect cloaked ships. Even the engines burned faster with the help of the crystal core. Tom was amazed. "This ship has never moved this smooth before." Mira gave a small smile. "Good. You'll need it, because he will send bounty hunters next. Ones who can track through wormholes and pulse trails. We need to disappear for a while." Tom nodded and entered the Telra moon coordinates. As the ship jumped into light speed, both of them sat in silence. They had only known each other for a short time, but already they had faced danger and escaped. Something unspoken was building between them, a strange trust. Not of master and servant, not of rescuer and victim, but of two people thrown into chaos and choosing to stand together. Tom looked at Mira one more time. "You still think choosing me was a good idea?" Mira looked forward, her voice steady. "Yes, the galaxy watches stories. Let them watch this one." The Star Needle moved away from the frozen planet and headed toward the moon Telra. Its surface was rough and covered with thick green forests and tall rocky mountains. The moon was a perfect place to hide, but it was not easy to reach. The ship had to pass through a dangerous asteroid field full of sharp stones and fast-moving debris. Tom flew carefully. His hands held the controls steady. He had traveled this path many times before, but never with a royal alien on board. Mira sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the view outside. She watched the glowing rocks float in silence. "Tom," Mira said quietly, "this asteroid field is a perfect trap. Many ships have been lost here. Are you sure you can make it?" Tom smiled. "I know it like the back of my hand. You just have to trust me." Mira nodded. She felt a strange calm with him. He was not like any human she had met before. He was strong and kind, and he did not treat her like a prize or a slave. As they moved deeper into the field, sudden alarms began to ring. "Warning," the ship's computer said. "Multiple hostiles detected." Tom's heart jumped. He looked at the scanners. Several fast ships were chasing them. They had sharp weapons and were closing in quickly. "Bounty hunters," Mira said. "Sent by the king." Tom pressed buttons and changed course. The Star Needle twisted and turned through the rocks. The hunters followed, firing energy bolts. Sparks flew as the shots hit the ship's shields. "Hold on," Tom said with determination. "I will lose them." The chase was dangerous and long. The hunters were skilled, but Tom's knowledge of the asteroid paths gave him an advantage. He steered the ship toward a narrow passage between two giant asteroids. "Now!" Mira shouted. Tom boosted the engines. The Star Needle shot through the narrow gap. The hunters tried to follow, but their ships were too big. 2 of them crashed into the asteroids, exploding in fireballs. The rest slowed down and disappeared behind the rocks. Tom breathed deeply. We lost them for now. Mira smiled for the first time in days. Good work. They landed on Telra's surface, hidden under the cover of giant trees. The forest was quiet but alive with strange sounds. Tom opened the ship's hatch and fresh air filled the cabin. "Welcome to my hideout," Tom said. "We can stay here for a while." Mira looked around carefully. "We need to repair the ship and plan our next move." Together, they worked on the ship. Mira's knowledge of technology helped a lot. She found ways to improve the ship's shields and weapons using parts Tom had collected before. Tom learned quickly and enjoyed working with her. During breaks, Tom showed Mira old human books and music stored in his ship's library. She was fascinated by the stories of Earth and its people. One night, as the twin moons rose over the forest, Mira spoke about her past. "I was born into the royal family," she said softly. "But I never wanted to be just a wife. I wanted to help my people live better lives. The king did not like that. He wants power, not peace." Tom listened. "Why did you stay so long if you were unhappy?" Mira looked at the stars. "Because I hoped things would change, but they never did." Tom nodded. "I know what it feels like to be trapped. My family lost everything in a war. I had to survive alone. Their stories connected them. They were both fighters in their own way." Suddenly, the ship's alarm sounded again. "More ships incoming," Tom said. "They found us." Mira stood up. "We must prepare to defend ourselves." Tom grabbed his old rifle. Mira activated the ship's hidden defense systems. Outside, enemy ships landed near the forest edge. Alien soldiers began to move forward, searching for them. Tom and Mira set traps around the ship and used the forest to hide. When the soldiers approached, Tom fired from behind trees, while Mira used her tech to disable enemy weapons. The battle was fierce but short. The hunters did not expect strong resistance. After losing several soldiers, they retreated. Breathing hard, Tom looked at Mira. "We can fight them, but not forever," Mira agreed. "We need allies." Tom thought of the rebels he had heard about on other planets, people who also wanted freedom from the Zarn Empire. "I know some places where rebels hide," he said. "Maybe they can help us." Mira smiled, with hope. "Then we have a plan." Together, they prepared to leave Telra. They loaded supplies and repaired the ship fully. Mira looked confident now, no longer just a prisoner or a prize. Tom checked the controls. "Ready when you are." As the Star Needle lifted off, both looked out at the forest below. The moon would stay safe for a while. But the war was just beginning. They were no longer alone. They had each other and a future to fight for. The Star Needle flew through the dark space between stars. Tom and Mira were no longer just 2 strangers thrown together by chance. They were becoming partners with a shared purpose. The danger from King Durex and his soldiers was still very real, but now they had a plan. Mira stood at the ship's small workshop, surrounded by machines and tools. She worked carefully, her hands moving quickly but with skill. Tom watched her, amazed at how much she knew about technology. "I never thought a queen could be so good with machines," Tom said with a smile. Mira laughed softly. "I was not a queen in the usual way. The king wanted me to help build his empire. I studied systems, weapons, and defenses. It was my secret rebellion." Tom nodded. "That knowledge will help us a lot. Maybe we can fix this old ship and make it faster and stronger." Together, they began to work on the Star Needle. Tom handed Mira parts he had scavenged, and she showed him how to connect wires and program the ship's computers. Slowly, the ship became better than before. Its shields grew stronger, and its sensors became sharper. During their work, Tom shared stories of Earth. He told Mira about humans and their struggles. Mira listened carefully, fascinated by the idea of a world so different from her own. "You humans are very strong," Mira said. "Your history is full of wars and survival. I admire that." Tom smiled. "We have to be. But we also have kindness and hope. That's why I think we can win this fight." Mira looked out the window at the stars. "I want to help more than just myself now. The people under the king's rule suffer. I want to change that." Tom's face grew serious. "There are rebels in the outer colonies. They want freedom from the Zarn Empire. Maybe they will join us." Mira nodded. "We need allies if we want to challenge the king." As they talked, the ship's alarm suddenly beeped. Tom checked the screens. "Sensors show a small ship approaching," he said. "It's not on any trade route. Could be friend or foe." Mira stood quickly. "Prepare for contact." The unknown ship docked quietly. A group of humans stepped inside. They were armed but not aggressive. One of them, a woman named Kara, stepped forward. "We heard about the auction and the escape," Kara said. "We want to help." Mira smiled with relief. "We need friends like you." Kara nodded. "We have been fighting the Empire for years. Together, we are stronger." Tom introduced Mira to the rebel group. They shared stories and plans. The rebels told them about secret bases, hidden ships, and places where the Empire's control was weak. Mira and Tom realized they were part of something bigger. They were not just running from danger, they were leading a new hope. Days passed as they trained together. Mira taught the rebels how to use Zarn technology to improve their weapons and defenses. Tom showed them human tactics and how to pilot small ships through asteroid fields. Trust grew between them all. Mira and Tom became leaders, inspiring others with their courage. One night, under the light of distant stars, Mira spoke to Tom. "You saved me when no one else would. I thought I was alone." Tom smiled gently. "You're not alone anymore. We fight together." Mira looked at him with new respect. "Thank you, Tom." The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they felt hope. Together, they would face the Empire and fight for freedom. The Star Needle flew through space toward the Zarn colony called Vexa. It was a mining world under strict control of the Empire, but beneath the surface, a secret group of rebels lived in hiding. Mira and Tom hoped to meet them and offer help. As they approached Vexa, the planet's thick clouds covered its surface. The colony was full of tall machines that dug deep into the ground. On the outside, guards patrolled the streets with heavy weapons. Inside, people whispered about freedom and change. Tom landed the ship near an old warehouse. Mira and the rebels from their new group waited with tense eyes. They knew the Empire's spies could be anywhere, but they had no choice. The time to act was now. Inside the warehouse, the rebels gathered around a holographic map. It showed the layout of a nearby Zarn outpost. The outpost held many prisoners, workers, rebels, and innocent people forced to serve the Empire. Mira pointed to the map. "We can attack here. This is where the guards are weakest. If we free the prisoners, it will inspire others to rise." Tom nodded. "I will lead the air team. We can take down their communication towers to stop them calling for help." Kara and other rebels prepared weapons and ships. Everyone felt a mix of fear and hope. They knew the risks, but they wanted to fight for a better future. At night, under a dark sky, the rebel ships moved quietly. Tom flew the Star Needle at the front. Mira stayed close, ready to help with her tech. The outpost was surrounded by tall walls and watchtowers. The rebels waited for the right moment. Then, Tom gave the signal. The ships attacked the communication towers first. Explosions lit the sky. The Empire guards were confused. Without communication, they could not call reinforcements. Tom's pilots flew low and fast, dodging laser fire. Mira activated the ship's special shields to protect them. They landed near the prison gates. Inside, Mira and the rebels used special devices to unlock the heavy doors. The prisoners looked tired and scared, but quickly understood the plan. Freedom was near. Together they ran through the tunnels, fighting guards. With careful strikes, Mira used her knowledge to disable traps and security systems. Tom helped carry injured rebels and prisoners. After a fierce battle, they reached the surface. The sky was bright with stars. The prisoners cheered as they escaped into the forest. The rebels had won a great victory, but the fight was not over. King Durex would send more soldiers, stronger and faster. They had to be ready. Back on the ship, Mira looked at the freed people. This is only the beginning. If we keep fighting, the Empire will fall. Tom smiled. We showed them that even the smallest group can make a difference. The news of the attack spread quickly across nearby planets. More rebels joined the cause, inspired by Mira and Tom's courage. King Durex was furious. He sent his royal fleet to hunt them down. But Mira and Tom were ready. They had new allies, new hope, and a plan to fight for freedom. The jungle moon of Thaxa was thick with trees and shadows. Mist covered the ground as dawn broke over the hills. This was where Mira, Tom, and the rebel forces prepared for their greatest battle. The king's royal fleet was coming to crush the rebellion once and for all. Mira stood with her commanders, studying the map of the battlefield. Her eyes were sharp and her voice steady. We know the king's ships will attack from the east, she said. Our ground forces will defend the jungle paths. Tom, your air units must control the skies. Without that, we cannot win. Tom nodded. He had spent days training the pilots, teaching them how to fly fast and use the dense forest to hide from enemy scanners. Many of the rebels had never flown before, but with Tom's guidance, they were ready. As the sun rose higher, the rebel forces took their positions. Soldiers hid behind trees and rocks. Pilots waited in their ships, engines silent but ready. Mira and Tom shared a look of determination. The sky suddenly filled with the sound of engines. The king's fleet appeared over the horizon. Large warships flew low, dropping troops and machines into the jungle. Bright beams of energy cut through the trees as battle began. Tom's air squadron flew swiftly, attacking the enemy ships with skill and courage. He led from the front, dodging enemy fire and striking key targets. The rebels' smaller ships used the jungle's cover to surprise the enemy. On the ground, Mira fought beside her soldiers. She used her training to lead attacks and defend important positions. Her presence inspired the rebels to fight harder. The jungle echoed with the sounds of battle, shouts, blaster fire, and explosions. Despite being outnumbered, the rebels held their ground. They used traps and guerrilla tactics to slow the enemy's advance. Tom coordinated air support, guiding soldiers through dangerous areas and calling in strikes on enemy machines. At one point, the king's flagship appeared overhead. It was huge and heavily armed. Tom knew they had to stop it or lose the battle. "Follow me!" he shouted. The rebels' fastest pilots flew toward the flagship, weaving through heavy fire. Mira called in ground teams to attack the ships, landing pads. The battle was fierce. Tom's ship took hits, but kept fighting. Mira faced the king's elite guards in hand-to-hand combat. She moved with skill and speed, fighting not just for herself, but for all who wanted freedom. Finally, the rebels destroyed the flagship's control center. The ship lost power and crashed into the jungle. The king's forces began to retreat. Mira and Tom stood together as the sun set. The jungle was quiet now, but the cost was high. Many rebels were injured or lost, but their victory was clear. "We did it," Mira said quietly. "The Empire's grip is breaking." Tom smiled. "This is only the start. There are many more battles ahead." Mira looked at the horizon. "And we will face them together." The rebels began to heal and rebuild. News of their victory spread across the galaxy. Planets long ruled by fear started to hope for freedom. King Durex was defeated but not destroyed. He still controlled many worlds. But the rebellion had shown that even the smallest spark could start a fire. Mira and Tom became symbols of courage and trust. They worked to unite the free worlds and build a new future, one where power was not used to control, but to protect. Together, they stood on the hill under the twin suns, ready to lead their people into a new era. The galaxy was changing, not by fear, but by hope and friendship. The galaxy was slowly changing. The long shadow of the Zarn Empire was shrinking. After the great battle on Thaxa, many planets had chosen freedom over fear. Mira and Tom stood together on a hill, overlooking a small town that was beginning to rebuild. The twin suns warmed their faces, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh flowers. Mira looked around, her eyes shining with hope. "This is what we fought for," she said. "Not just victory, but peace." Tom nodded. "We showed the galaxy that courage and trust can defeat even the strongest enemies." The Zarn Empire was broken. King Durex had lost his power and his throne. But Mira did not want to become queen. She believed in something different. She wanted a council, a group of leaders from many worlds who would work together. No one would rule alone again. "Together we will build a new alliance," Mira said. "One that listens to the people and protects their rights." Tom smiled. "And I will help teach the next generation, pilots, engineers, and dreamers who will carry this hope forward." Tom had opened a school near the town. It was a place where young people could learn to fly ships and fix machines. Many came from distant planets, eager to be part of the new future. Tom taught with patience and kindness. He knew the value of hard work and dreams. Mira often visited the school. She shared stories of her past and taught about courage and freedom. The children listened with wide eyes, inspired by her strength. One day, a young girl approached Mira. "Will we ever see the king again?" she asked softly. Mira smiled gently. "He is far away now, but what matters is what we build next. A future where no one rules by fear." The planets that once lived under the king's rule began to connect. Trade and friendship grew between them. Old enemies became allies. The scars of war slowly healed. Mira and Tom traveled to many worlds, helping leaders create peace and understanding. They worked to share technology, food, and knowledge. The galaxy was no longer divided by fear, but joined by hope. Sometimes, Mira thought about the auction on Ranos. How strange it was that a poor human had bought her freedom. That moment had changed everything. It was the start of a journey neither of them expected. Tom looked at Mira one evening as they watched the twin suns set. "We made the right choice," he said quietly. Mira nodded. "We did. Together." The stars began to shine above them, bright and full of promise. The galaxy was no longer ruled by one king, but by many hearts united. The story of a rebellious wife and a poor human had become a legend of courage, trust, and a new beginning.